Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. And as we warm in and get into this live session, as people are coming into the live, please let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. It's always important to just know that I can be heard, I can be seen. So as you're popping in, just say hello, tell me where you're visiting from. We have a great global audience, so it's always cool to hear where people are visiting from. Okay, let's dive in. Basically, and again, let me check my mic. I think I look good. So I want to talk quickly about yesterday's video. As always, we'll kind of prompt. Okay, Brad, you're the best. Thank you so much for always giving me those warm and fuzzies. I appreciate it. Uh, let's talk a little bit about yesterday's video really quickly. Obviously, I do a lot of question and answer videos, and I do that for a reason. The audience has asked for it, and so always with the Q&A videos, I'm going to answer from the perspective of some role, but I really want you to look at the pieces of the puzzle. So whenever I do a Q&A, it's like yesterday was a behavioral question, so look at how I'm setting up the situation and task, the specific actions, and as I walk through them, and then ultimately, what are those results? And yesterday's video was focused in on leading by example. It's so likely that you get a question of how did you take the reins? How did you step up? How were you proactive? How did you lead by example? Something that involves proactivity. So anytime you're thinking about a question that involves proactivity, you're going to have to think about obviously what you did and how you went about being proactive. And again, yesterday's video is just calling out how to lead by example. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, please do. Okay, I'm going to spend just a moment talking about my services and then we're going to dive right in. In our downtime, we'll talk a little bit about how to stand out in a competitive job market, but this is really a Q&A session. Anything and everything is on the table. So all questions, please bring them up. I'm here to help. And that doesn't just have to be questions, that can be comments, that can be information. Information that you found out that you think might be useful for the entire community, whether that's people watching on LinkedIn or watching on YouTube. So I've thrown up this coupon code for both my AI tool and for my interview mastery course. So if you use the coupon code job market, you can get 20% off the AI tool. That's all packages, and 20% off the interview mastery course. And I've left that open till midnight tomorrow Pacific time. Still doing one-on-one coaching. That's interview, negotiation, and strategy sessions. So that could be resume, LinkedIn networking. That's becoming much more common because the job market is becoming much tougher. We're getting great feedback on the AI tool. I think I've mentioned we're at about 1,000 signups, and that's going to keep going. And we'll continue to develop the tool. If you haven't been in there in a while, we've really improved it quite a bit over the last, well, we're approaching 3 months since launch. So we're improving, and improving the user experience. And then the interview mastery course has been getting great feedback for the last couple of years. If you like what I'm doing today, or if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. If you go to that site, we have a ton of free resources for you. Check that out. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday and new original content every Monday. Let's dive in. Remember, any and all questions are welcome. And then in our downtime, we will discuss how you're going to stand out in a competitive job market. Brad, thank you as always for being my rock in terms of letting me know that people can see and hear me. It's greatly appreciated. Hi, Allison. Hi from Taiwan. Oh, wow. It's a crazy time, your time, I think. So thanks for being here. California, that's my home. Hey, thanks for being here. Hi from the UK. Great to have you. Cincy, nice. Thanks for being here. Good morning from sunny Washington. Oh, wow. I heard somebody today, well, it's definitely happened. I heard somebody complaining about the gray in San Diego, and I think they were unaware that maybe unaware that in May, especially at the beach, it's pretty gray here in San Diego. We get the Well, we have the 3 funny ones. In April, it's Grapple. In May, it's May Gray, and in June, it's June Gloom. We get a lot of gray at the beach here in San Diego for those 3 months. Okay, as we're warming into this session, any and all questions are really gonna be welcome, so beyond just telling me where you're visiting from, you're here for a reason, right? And of course, sometimes the reason is to just hear what other people are talking about, sometimes to be here to hear what I wanna talk about, but, we really wanna drive this live session through questions and comments, and so, again, anything and everything, is welcome in these sessions. So let's talk a little bit about how to stand out in a competitive job market, and as these questions come in, obviously, I'll answer them. So it is really, really competitive right now, and I think that sometimes we see these jobs reports, sometimes we hear everything's good, like the economy actually isn't that bad and everything's going great, et cetera, but the reality is for anybody who's in job search mode now, you know that this is one of the most competitive job markets ever. Why is that? What is going on to make this job market so competitive? Well, it's one thing is it's the total number of really higher level roles, it's less. And a lot of that is being driven by whether it's big tech or SMB tech companies or startups, they're hiring a little bit less. Why? Because candidly, they can. Their ability to automate things is just getting easier and easier. So with less hiring and automating out some of the more simple jobs, well, that's why we're seeing less jobs in tech. Secondly, we all know that these big tech companies laid off, right? So whether it's Google or Amazon or any of these companies that have laid off, even Apple had some layoffs recently, the competition that you're going up against is fierce. And that's making the job market more competitive too. You have this all of a sudden you have a bigger pool of talent that again is making it a little bit more competitive. And let's just call it what it is. Let's just be totally transparent and honest. If you have Google or Amazon on your resume, you're just more likely to get calls. You're more likely to get reach outs. Does that actually mean that that person's a better employee? Absolutely not. But it is a competitive advantage to have a big brand in your background. And it's something, one of the reasons why I'm still confident that getting a job at a big technical company is valuable. It really doesn't maybe have as much to do with, like, whether that's the best place in the world to work anymore. It has to do with the value of the brand, and if you've been here before, you know I talk extensively about this. Of course, companies, big tech companies pay great, but the value of that brand is what's priceless. That is what will continue to pay you over time. So all of a sudden, again, I know it's been a couple of years now, but all of a sudden, 12,000 Google well, I guess that hasn't been a couple of years. That's been like a year and a half ago. All of a sudden, there's 12,000 Google employees in the market, or there's 10,000 Amazon employees in the market. Again, if you're going after these elite tough jobs, you are having to compete with them. So that's making the job market tougher. I think also what's making it tougher is you're going to see more and more of a lean towards jobs that have some involvement in specialized skills, whether that's anything AI related, industry specific. So it's an opportunity. We look at this as an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going after X role. So like let's say we're going after a job at AWS, for example. Well, we want to stand out in a competitive job market. Maybe we want to spend a few months getting an AWS certificate. So at least we understand the landscape, we understand the terminology, and that's a really, really big one. What happens at any company is we wanna understand their product space, their product landscape, and of course, not all companies or all jobs are gonna need certificates, but it's an opportunity to show your learnings and how you're gonna come in and hit the ground running. And the other thing, let's take, for example, um, let's take, like, Google Ads. You're going after an account strategist role, account manager, account executive role at Google, and you talk to the recruiter and they say, "Hey, look, you don't really need to know Google Ads in order to get this job, but taking that certificate program, why it can be so helpful and how you can stand out in a competitive job market is your interviewers use it every single day. So if your interviewers are using it every single day, we've gotta be able to talk about it when answering questions, especially hypothetical questions. If we're not doing that, um, we're not gonna be really memorable to our audience, so it's just another opportunity to stand out. Now, of course, and let me pause for a second because I don't think I've ever hit a live session at 10 minutes where we didn't have a single question. So please, I just want to pause. Please come in with questions. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to answer, here to help. But let's talk a little bit about our favorite friend, LinkedIn. Again, there's just so many missed opportunities for standing out in a competitive job market with LinkedIn, and the biggest thing about LinkedIn, I get it, like, people don't wanna do it, it's not fun, the UI is not great, the UX isn't great, I get it, but when we go and we look at our profiles and how we wanna stand out in a competitive job market, it all starts. Let's walk through a LinkedIn profile. If we don't have questions, we'll walk through it and people can hang out or not hang out, but, one of the biggest missed opportunities of how to stand out in a competitive job market is the LinkedIn background photo. So there's really 2 facets here, like, there's the facet of the job seeker who should be putting their information in that LinkedIn background photo. So what does that mean? You could be you could be putting, well, looking for software engineering roles, but you could even be more specific in that LinkedIn photo. You could say, looking for back-end software engineer roles, specializing in Python, open to San Francisco and remote opportunities, and put your phone number and your email. And you can create all that in about 5 minutes in Canva. So now all of a sudden, your LinkedIn background photo is a call to action for the types of jobs you're looking for. Now, if you have a job, you really wanna be kinda highlighting in that photo, well, what do you do? Let's stick with a software engineer. Maybe you have a cool coding photo or anything that's visually stimulating, so then when your audience lands on your LinkedIn profile, it's visually pleasing, it's visually aesthetic, and so what they're gonna do is they're gonna continue diving into your profile. Let's go to the next step. So your picture. Your picture, look, if you don't have a picture on LinkedIn, I think that these are fuzzy stats, okay? But the stats are, it's like you're 20 people are 24 times more likely to look at your LinkedIn profile if you have a picture. Is that a made up stat? Absolutely. Let's drop it all the way down. What if it was just a 2x? What if people were twice as likely to look at your LinkedIn profile if you had a good photo? It would be worth it, right? So there's a few keys on the photo, and again, this is really about standing out in a competitive job market. You're smiling, and look, it's shoulders and above. Smiling, shoulders and above, and a clean background. If you wanna clean up that background, you already have a photo you like, just go to remove.bg. That's remove.bg. It's free. It's a free tool that will remove backgrounds, so I really recommend that one. Then as you get down into your name, if you have a middle initial, add a middle initial. How do you stand out in a competitive job market with a middle initial? Well, you'll know when it's spam. Anytime anybody reaches out to me and says, "Hey, Jeff H," spam. I don't even read it. My name is not Jeff H. My name is Jeff. It's just I go as Jeff H. Sipe because there's a famous drummer named Jeff Sipe. So then, after your name, after your last name, put a comma and put what your specific role or focus area is. That font is really big. Again, another way to call out, "Hey, I'm Jeff H. Sipe, comma, software engineer or back-end software engineer." Then in your headline, you really wanna focus in on you have up to 4 lines to add keywords. Why wouldn't we do that? It's a keyword search tool. Now, as we go down, and we'll come back to the LinkedIn profile because I want to get to these questions, but if you are looking for a job, you can literally add your resume in and say, "My resume." You need an upgraded account to do that, but if you're in job search mode, it's something I strongly recommend. Now, if you are in a role and you're hiring or you have roles on your team that are open, you want to drive people to your website and your open roles. It's just making you look like you know what you're doing, and I know it sounds so silly, especially if you have a job, that this might help you stand out in a competitive job market, but every aspect of your LinkedIn profile, let's keep going actually, and I'll get to these questions in just a moment, so please hang out with me. In the about section, optimize those first 4 lines in the about section, so if they do not click the see more button, they know enough about you. In the about section, this is a keyword search item. Write whatever you want in there, but drop at the bottom all your skills, all your expertise, get everything in that about section so it will hit those searches because LinkedIn Recruiter is a keyword search, and that's how you can get found. In the experience section, I just want to say treat it like your resume. You are going to get all sorts of feedback that says don't do it, but LinkedIn is a keyword search tool. So put your experience in there. Obviously, your education, if your education is getting a little dated, maybe remove the dates, etcetera, but standing out in a competitive job market, there are many people who are looking for jobs or want jobs, but they haven't optimized their LinkedIn profile, so taking some of those steps, and obviously I've done a ton of videos on this, will really help. Okay, we are 16 minutes in, and again, I don't think I've ever gone that long without starting to answer questions, so let's answer some questions. Okay, it's a very competitive market. I've applied to 40 companies this year and 38 didn't give me an interview. Luckily, last week I signed an offer for a SWE role at Google. Okay, amazing. And this speaks to just your ability to stay in there, hang out. So much of the current job market is all about perseverance and just sticking with it. Like, I just want you to be able to keep going. And I get that that's really hard. Now, I will make tons of comments on job applications. So, if you are going to apply, which again, I get it, it's low hanging fruit. Like we got to apply to jobs, especially if we're looking for work. But I definitely want you to focus more on networking strategies, and we can definitely dive deeper into that, and we'll dive deeper into that in this live session today. Um, if you do apply, always apply on the company website, never through LinkedIn or Indeed or any third party. Go through the company website. Does it really matter? In a lot of cases, no, but in a few cases, it will matter. So it's just a small recommendation. But congrats, and we love seeing this. Anybody, if you get the job and you come back and tell us you got the job, especially a job at Google, especially a SWE role, that's awesome because those SWE roles, like especially the L3s, the L4s, I don't believe that they're going to be around in a couple of years. I think everything will be 5, 6, 7 as AI will automate out some of the lower level software engineering roles. Yeah, let's please tell us how you got Google to follow up with you. I mean, I imagine if you applied for a SWE role that you have a pretty good background in order to get that call because the software engineering role have a lot of applicants, maybe more than any other role. Can you please talk about applying to the same company multiple times? Example, if you entered an interview cycle but did not make it for an offer, does this impact anything for future apps at the company? Um, always, always, right? So, like, here's what happens: we apply for the job, we get the interview, and let's say in an unfortunate scenario, we don't get the job. Okay, we don't get the job. That's okay. Can you apply again? Of course you can. Now, if you don't get the job and it's a back-end software engineer focused in Python, we don't just apply to that same job the day after we get the rejection, right? For similar or the same job at most companies, it's at least a 6-month wait to a year wait. Give it a year, right? For that specific role, the reason to give it a year is to learn those skills that you didn't have to get it the next time around. Do you have to follow that rule? Absolutely not. But you absolutely can apply again. Now, will this have an impact? Of course. If you did great in those interviews and you apply again, if that comes across the recruiter's desk, for example, they're gonna look at your background, like it, and then they're gonna match that up to your past interview experience and feedback. They're gonna say, "Whoa." This is a really good candidate. Now it has the opposite effect too. Data sticks with you, right? And so I don't know what companies wouldn't be tracking this at this point. Maybe if they don't even have an applicant tracking system, but any small, medium, or large company is going to have some sort of system for tracking all the data. So for anybody who bombed the interviews before, yeah, I mean, if you have a good background, they might give you another opportunity, but that's where they might wait a longer period of time. But absolutely past interview performance will impact whether you get interviews in the future, for sure. I hope that helps. How do you envision the US job market for PGM, TPM roles in Q1 and Q2 of 2025? So about a year out, right? For Q1, I guess less time than that. I think that program management and technical program management roles are pretty insulated from AI, meaning that at the core function of a fantastic program manager, whether they're technical or non-technical, is the ability to lead without authority. You're managing timeline, budget, scope, and keeping all the critical stakeholders on track, doing all the check-ins, making sure the roadmap is right, you're tracking those milestones, all those things we know about program managers. And so, yes, you can automate out tasks with AI, but your ability to reel people in and get them to do the job, I feel like program management, in my opinion, is very, very safe from AI, and that's what I want everybody to think about how to stand out in a competitive job market. What are the roles that are pretty insulated from AI? Um, I don't think that my current job is very protected from AI, and that's why I built an AI tool. I feel like you're gonna see more and more AI interview coaching, and quite honestly, I understand that at my core, I'm a communications coach, and I do think that communications will help people stand out more than anything when we're dealing with AI, but, I see the writing on the wall, right? And so, because of that, I've pivoted and adjusted accordingly, and that's what I want everybody to be doing. I know this is really long-winded, but I like these roles. I think they're safe from AI, and I don't see anything but maybe a small uptick in these openings at that time next year, if anything. I hope that helps. And I know that was long. Okay. So, Jim, it was my third try at Google. So this time they reached out to me. The first time around, I won the lottery. They just responded to my application, but the best way is to get a referral. And yes, let's talk about that. How to stand out in a competitive job market. Don't apply, get referred. Oh, that is the worst advice, right? Because if we don't have a referral, that's just an annoying comment that nobody wants to hear. But what we want to do is we just want to press on the people we know or kind of know as much as we can. And sometimes we need to press again and again. And we need to let them know, "Hey, I know I'm pressing you. You're my person. You're what I got. I gotta do it. And by the way, just sent you emailed you a $100 gift card to the Olive Garden," or whatever it is, wherever people like to eat. I don't know why I brought up Olive Garden, but, wherever they like to eat, like, just keep them engaged, a little bribe here or there, okay, it's no big deal, right? But, um getting referred is a way to stand out. Here's the other thing, and I'll go kinda back. Let's go back, 11 years. When I got hired at Google, before I went into the interview process, I just did a search of, like, my contacts, and I found out that one of my high school classmates and one of my college classmates were both working at Google, and I didn't even know. So I reached out to them and just asked them for advice, right? So, again, that was already when I had gotten into the interview stage, but sometimes we don't realize that our former classmates, colleagues, friends have ended up at these companies. Maybe we've lost touch a little bit. So definitely diving into LinkedIn, looking where your first connections are. So you could just type in Google in LinkedIn, hit people, and then hit first connections, and you might be surprised. Your friend Sue might have gotten a job at Google a couple of years ago and you just didn't know. You haven't talked to them in a while. great opportunity to reach out to Sue and see if Sue can help. Now, how do we stand out in a competitive job market? Maybe we take a sneaky other step before reaching out directly to Sue. Maybe we see that Sue works at Google. We think she can help us. Write Sue a LinkedIn recommendation. Just proactively write a recommendation and send it off. That is a very sneaky and really good trick. I mean, and it's not a trick, like, you're gonna write a recommendation based on liking Sue, but it's a great way to reconnect with Sue to write that LinkedIn recommendation, and I was giving this feedback as recently as yesterday to a client, like, there's just a huge opportunity to I would just go in and give recommendations across the board. So just recommend, 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 um those recommendations are helpful. Are people really looking at them? No. No, I don't think they are. But is the person who's receiving it looking at it? Absolutely, and it's just a great way to reconnect and potentially get into a role that others wouldn't have gotten into by just taking that one simple step. I hope that helps. Or that was just context. I wasn't really answering anything there, but the other quick item I wanna note is not always the first time. Right? And so if I was to cast a wide net to say, like, who did I hire at Google? I would say it was probably one third of the time it was the first interview, one third of the time it was the second interview, one third of the time it was the third interview. After 3, those averages go way, way down, but is it uncommon to get in on your second or third time? Absolutely not. That's very, very common. And congrats again. Hey, Jeff, I got pulled into the interview loop at Meta for a full-time content designer role. Okay, surprise given the market. I'm currently at the writing exercise stage after the first interview, but I have no idea what level I'm interviewing for. Does Meta use the interview to level candidates appropriately? I know I was leveled at L5 at Google, but Meta's CD roles are all over the place. Okay. Let's keep going. Base salary ranges for CDs can be anywhere from 96 to 212K given the level and required experience. Do you know how the salary negotiation at Meta differs from Google? Okay. So the writing exercise, let's go back to this. Okay, so you're doing the writing example. Um, so Meta similar to other companies will come in with some sort of level idea. Again, if you're looking at Meta and Google, Google's much bigger. I know it doesn't feel that way, but Google is much bigger. So I would imagine an L6 at Meta, maybe an L7, just depends, right? Um, but yeah, you're gonna see things that are all over the place. You can't really control the leveling or any of that stuff, but you can control the leveling by interviewing greatly, does that make sense? Yeah, by having great interviews, you can really up that level and don't worry about comp. Don't talk about comp yet. It's too early, right? If they ask about it, I wanna meet with the team. I wanna learn more about the role, right? We're deflecting, deflecting, deflecting. Now, when we get into negotiation with Meta, I've negotiated with Meta quite a bit. Same philosophy as the other big tech companies. Anchor high, know that the biggest flexibility point is gonna be equity, and just get after it. They're not gonna rescind your offer because you anchor high and you're aggressive in your desires, wants, needs. Just be gracious and kind, but we can absolutely use a big anchor like we would at Google. Any big tech company, any FAANG company, these big companies, just go big. I haven't really seen any of the tech companies rescinding offers, especially whatever we're calling them, the FAANG companies, MAGA or whatever we're calling them these days once Facebook turned over to Meta. Um, Even Amazon, for example. Amazon's such a funny use case because, I get Amazon offers negotiation all the time, and Amazon recruiters are just so much more bold saying, "Oh, these numbers are crazy. We might need to rescind the offer. We might need to move on with other candidates." They repeat that all the time, but yet I've never seen an offer rescinded because somebody went high at Amazon. And I've even I've even backed that up with my Amazon friends just to make sure I was playing it safe, right? So it's really important that you just anybody who gets in front of these big tech companies, you go after it. We talk exhaustively, and I do really about negotiation and how to negotiate. I never wanna use these live sessions to push on my services, and that's not a fully true statement. Obviously, I wanna let people know what I'm doing, but whether it's me or anybody else, if you are not familiar with negotiation and you get to that phase, use an expert. Whatever the cost of that expert is, it doesn't matter. It's such a small amount in comparison to the additional money you'll get at these big tech companies. I'm going to get your next comment in a second. Let me just jump in and I'm going to prompt on my services. As I said, I just wasn't going to do. Give me 30 seconds to prompt on my services, and then we'll get right back to questions. Just today, if you use the coupon or promo code job market, it's 20% off of all of our AI tool packages and off the interview mastery course. Still doing one-on-one interview negotiation and strategy sessions, which is really resume and LinkedIn. And obviously those are happening much more frequently in a competitive job market. The AI tool, I am investing more money than than I want to admit, or um, but but on a monthly basis, I have a huge investment in this product, and it will continue to get better and better. We already know the feedback is best in market. Without a doubt, our feedback is actionable. It shows you where you can improve. All the other tools, all my other competitors will just throw a bunch of feedback at you that's not helpful. We wanna figure out how we fix the small pieces of the puzzle to make the overall puzzle better, okay? Um, if you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday and new original content every Monday. Okay, let's get back to questions. Have some fun. Okay, still crickets at Google in terms of CD roles, but it's amusing to me how Meta finally had some roles open that aren't restricted to just boomerang hires and internal candidates. Yeah, and of course, I think we've talked enough about this. Like, I think you should I think you should let Google go. I think that, if I'm gonna give my most candid, honest feedback, like, the reality is that I think that maybe the connection to Google is just a bad mental headspace, right? It's like every week there's nothing, 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 and it's like, well, how long do you wanna allow Google to have that kinda negative impact on how you're thinking about them? Or do we just wipe the slate clean, say, "Look, I'm not interested in being involved with you or talking to you anymore," and, like, close up my application, and then you can leave good feedback, and then you can move on because it may just be time to move on. Now, I think that the next piece of feedback is a little tougher. Um, I'm always gonna hire a boomerang or an internal candidate over an external candidate, and there's one major reason why: data. I have potentially thousands and thousands of hours of data that tells me that person's good, whereas for an external candidate, I don't know, I'm guessing, and typically the interview process, we're only talking about maybe 3 hours of interviews, so I'm always gonna stack rank thousands of hours over a few hours, 100% of the time. If I was hiring at any of these companies, I would prioritize boomerangs and internal candidates, again, 100% of the time. It's just a data thing. I have more data on them. I know their performance. I know whether it's been good or bad, and so for some boomerangs and internal candidates, of course, I'm not gonna hire them. Their performance hasn't been good, but for those top performers who are just impacted by the layoffs in terms of a boomerang or the internal candidates that are doing well, whether that's in a current full-time role or contractor role, yeah, I'm always gonna prioritize them. It's just it makes more business sense, so that I get, but again, maybe dropping Google and just moving on and focusing in on other companies might be a good move at this point. I'm currently discussing my offer with the recruiter. He hasn't given me a verbal offer, but he did mention that I'm the manager's top pick since I received really good feedback on my interviews. Okay. Okay, good. We're going to go through these four. There was a hiring freeze, and the recruiter got back to me a month ago. A few weeks ago, I reached out for an update and managed to get a call with him. He said he would present my salary expectations to the manager. Today I heard back, and the email stated that he had the meeting with the hiring manager who is now reviewing all the applicants. And I will hear back before the end of the week. What should I make of this? I'm really puzzled at the moment. Could it be that I asked for too much? Very frustrated, not sure what game this is. Okay, yeah, I'm with you. I don't like it. I don't like this. It's like you're the number 1 pick, then you give salary expectations. This is I would I would refer to this as a fear tactic, and fear tactics are just absolutely hands down the worst. Um, it shows such a low level of emotional intelligence, of understanding how the world works and operates, and so, um, you should be frustrated. That's just obnoxious, and when I identify the best candidate, I wanna hire them, and I'll have salary restrictions, and I'll have things that will impact it, but I'm not gonna pull that offer away because they negotiate or they give high numbers. I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna give them my best possible offer, of course, with maybe some negotiation. So I don't like it. It's a game, it sucks, and yeah, I'm with you. I would be very frustrated too, and now we take that frustration and we just we breathe, right? And we remember that we've now lost control, and so with that loss of control, the only thing we can do is breathe and wait, and then if they come back to us and say, "Well, here's what we're able to do. We're still interested in these in you, but here are the new numbers," then you can find out, okay, how close are they getting to what you want? Is this offer negotiable? Because again, depending on the company, we have to ask about that. So I got into that scenario recently with a client last week, a negotiation client, where like we didn't really know the company's philosophy. There wasn't a lot of data online. So when we go into the negotiations, we ask first, well, what's your negotiation philosophy? Do you negotiate offers? And if so, what are the components that are negotiable? I don't love that strategy, but if we don't know, we don't want to get the offer rescinded because we go too high. Again, I don't know that that's your case, but it's just something to note. But yeah, I don't like these tactics. And this is one of the reasons, and again, I know people don't believe this or think this is going to happen, but this is one of the reasons why in the next 3 years recruiting will be fully automated. We'll have no more of these gray areas. All the way through negotiation will be totally automated. Recruiters will not exist in 3 years, in my opinion. They don't need to because the candidate experience with automation will be better. We will never end up in these scenarios, and I think that's people think that they need the warm and fuzzies of a human in the recruiting process, but I think that once it's automated and they see how good it is, they'll never wanna go back to dealing with humans because recruiters are just presenting way too much ambiguity. That is a super long-winded answer. Hang in there, and please come back next week and let us know what happened, okay? Okay. This may sound very strange, but I got an invitation for the assessment from Google. I passed the assessment. I was terrified because of interview anxiety, and I put my phone on flight mode for days. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over and figure out what's going on here. There are many interview preparations methods. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this first comment and then we'll go to your second comment. So you put your phone on flight mode for days, but is there um did you miss the call or something? I'm not understanding the context there. Let's go into these additional ones. There are many interview preparation methods. I've written down the answers to questions that may arise from watching your videos. I still have a lot of difficulty and freeze while practicing. English is not my mother tongue, but I have worked with good global companies and clients and have an excellent professional background. I feel like I'm at a dead end. Again, I mean, for the price point, if you wanna practice and English is not your first language, get in there and practice with the AI tool. Just get in there and practice. Again, the price point's gonna be low enough that it's gonna give anybody access. and that was one of the goals of the tool was to give anybody access, but get in there and keep practicing. Don't stop practicing. I don't want you to give up. There's really no reason to give up. Like, keep going. You're not at a dead end. You just gotta keep practicing, keep working on your language and communication skills. That's never gonna be detrimental, and for any of us, right? One of my biggest goals in life is I wanna be 100% fluent in Spanish, but I haven't really been taking the steps and putting in the effort to get there, so I'm never gonna be fluent if I don't take those steps, right? But it is a goal of mine, and I think it should be a goal of all of ours to learn a second language. It's just something fun, right? So, um, just my 2 cents, but I would just say you're not at a dead end. Don't give up. Um, it is tough. Like, all this stuff is tough, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help. Okay. Hey, Jeff, last week, I asked you if I could contact a hiring manager about a role the day after the application closed on LinkedIn. It's niche and had 40 applicants after being reposted for over a month. You told me to give them something instead of asking. Turns out they said my profile is what they're looking for and the search is still active. They asked some directed questions and told me the hiring committee needs to convene on the current submissions. They told me that they want to have further conversations, so to ping them in 2 weeks if I don't get a follow up. My referral says it's tough getting people of a certain caliber at their national lab, and he thinks the response is positive. We'll see how it turns out. Thanks for nudging me to reach out. Amazing. The worst case scenario is hearing nothing or hearing a no. We gotta push the envelope a little bit. Now, I do love a giving approach. We give so that the potential or prospective hiring manager actually takes a look at our background. 99% of the reach outs they're getting are reach outs that are asking for something, and it's like, "Oh, another person asking, I'm just gonna move on." They might not even look, but a giving approach may lead them to wanna look more, and then they see you're a fit, and then they reach out. 100%, 2 weeks on the dot follow-up, be gracious and kind. The other thing is, whenever we wanna get a meeting or get on anybody's calendar or whatever we wanna do, give them more. So you can say, "Hey, I just wanted to share in case you wanted to hop on a quick call. Here's my availability over the next 3 weeks to chat. I included an updated resume attached here. Here's the best phone number and email to reach me." When we're communicating, more is more. Give them all the data they need. Don't overwhelm them, but give them what they need, and I'm so happy to hear that you did it. Proactive reach out will lead to more and better job opportunities over time. Seems like there are 3 new FAANG acronyms. Gamma, Google, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Adobe. I don't even wanna read that one. Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, Alphabet, NVIDIA, and Amazon, and then Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Meta. I don't know. I mean, I think that, if I'm looking at what I would consider, like, big 5, the big 5 to me are Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. Those are kind of the big 5, and of course, we could argue for any of these, NVIDIA, Adobe, Oracle, we could throw in a bunch of these, but the reality is that I look at those as kind of the big 5 and kind of the elite 5, and that's why FANG never made sense because Netflix was in there, and they really never belonged, so it's kind of a weird acronym. It's always fun to talk about, but any big company, as we talk about the name brands that are recognizable, that's what matters, right? Because these big brands, again, will pay us over time, ideally. Plus 1 on the AI tool after 3 to 5 iterations on any question, incorporating the AI feedback each time, scores will rise into the 70s or 80s. Thank you so much for that, Jim. I mean, the reality is that we simply cannot be good at anything that we do not practice. And I even did a LinkedIn post on this yesterday. You know what happens a lot of times when I say, "Use this method," or "You should practice," or "You should go in with a plan," or "You should create a cheat sheet." People say, "No, I just wanna be my authentic self. No, I just wanna be honest." There's nothing inauthentic and not honest about practicing and preparing for a job interview. I always go back. I play basketball, like, once or twice a week, so I always go to back to the basketball analogy. If I go to that tryout or I'm in the critical game and I haven't practiced my free throws, I'm not gonna hit those free throws when they matter. With interview coaching, I've shot so many free throws, it's unbelievable, right? So, just when we go into these job interviews, we have to practice and prepare. It's not being dishonest or inauthentic to prepare. If you just wanna be honest and be yourself, you're not gonna get the job. I mean, like, because without prep and practice, you're going up against people who are preparing and practicing, and so I just find those comments really confusing. Again, we wouldn't go and try out for the symphony on the violin if we had never played the violin before. Like, why are we going into one of the most important moments in our career? We're not gonna have a ton of jobs. We've gotta practice our interview skills. So thanks for that, June. Little tangent on my end. What is the largest changes in equity you have seen during negotiations at Google or other FAANG companies? Over 1,000,000. Yeah, I've been able to negotiate over 1,000,000 extra in equity over 4 years. Um, Remember that's at the high level. So, like, that might be like a director level where they come in at with an initial offer of, like, 600K in equity, and we bring that equity up to, like, 1,600,000. So I've definitely done 7 figures plus. Is that uncommon? Sure, it's uncommon. But think about it from a leveling perspective. So, like, let's say an L3. Maybe in L3 they come in, I'm just gonna throw some numbers out there. Maybe in L3 they come in at, like, 100K in equity. Could you get that equity up to 200K? Sure. Now in L4, maybe they come in at 150K in equity. Could you get that up to 300? Maybe. So at each level, you're really trying to say, okay, if they give you that initial offer, you're gonna at least wanna try and double that equity. So what does that mean? You probably have to anchor at triple the equity at a minimum, probably more. And for a SWE role, the base ranges, they're gonna stay relatively tight from whatever you're offered initially at whatever level. That base range is maybe gonna move 10K, 5K, 10K, and then up to L7. That's where you'll see maybe a potential 20 to 25K movement. It's all in the equity, and then Google maxes out sign-ons up to 50K up to L7, so I would be asking for a sign-on too. Um, Obviously, I'm here to help if you need help with it, but, just make sure that you are really getting after it. Um, the AI tool has the option to video yourself while you answer. Perhaps this will help with your practice. And yeah, one of the things that we did set up, with that tool was we set it up so you could video, you could do just voice to text, or you could write, and you're gonna get the same AI feedback based on all those answers. So I think some people feel comfortable, like, hey, we start by writing it out. Maybe we start, then we like go from there to start reading it off the paper. So we go voice to text, and then eventually we get comfortable looking at the video screen and doing it via video and not really reading off of our answer. So there's a few different steps that we built in, just depending on what the user is feeling at that time. So hopefully that helps. What did the recruiter ask you in the initial phone call? So we're gonna go to that next comment right now, but I just wanna say, like, recruiters are wild cards, right? Like, we don't really know. Most recruiter interviews are gonna be super, super timid, lean. They're just gonna talk to you, tell me about yourself, why are you a fit for the role, what's your availability, might maybe ask a couple of questions, but usually they're pretty easy. Or you could get a recruiter like me who really worked with hiring managers when I had them to say, like, "What are 3 tough questions I should be asking this candidate to make sure that they're right for the role and that we should be moving forward with them?" And so, you got a recruiter screen with me was gonna be much tougher than the average recruiter screen, just the way it goes. Then some, for like technical roles, you might have to do a technical assessment. So when I was doing like sales engineers and those types of roles, we do a technical assessment right up front. So it really depends, but let's get these answers. Just a few questions about my skills and work experience, but mostly the recruiter just explained the next steps. Yep. Okay. The technical phone screen is the first big hurdle. Um, I'm a data center tech one at another data center company. I just want to join Google as a oh, I'm sorry. I think I okay. Sorry, I was kind of rolling from one to the other. Let's start this. Let's go here and then I'll come back. Sorry about that. English is my second language as well. It's extremely important to practice with native speakers. Hiring a tutor will provide a great ROI. I think there's just no other way. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, William, coming back to you. Your data center your data center tech 1 at another data center company. You just want to join Google as a data center tech 2. Last interviews, recruiter said I passed, but didn't score highest on networking, so I'm just studying before my interview again. Okay. I'm finding your videos here on YouTube helpful and preparing to articulate in an interview setting. I'm a good experienced data center technician, so thank you. Awesome, William. So much of the DC tech roles is like, you know what you're doing, right? Now, of course, if there's anything to brush up on, like you're really an expert in one area, but maybe not another, you can brush up on those technical items. So for DC techs, what are they going to ask you? What would you do if X happened? What would you do if Y happened? A common one is like, what happens if how would you pass if the how would you solve for X if the internet went down? You had no internet access. So they're gonna throw all sorts of challenges at you, but they're probably things you've seen before. So preparing for some of those types of questions will be really, really helpful. Competitive job versus referral. I see referral affect the hiring process or speed it up regardless on how you organize your LinkedIn profile or other things related to candidate profiles. Am I right? 100%. When we get in front of the job, we get into the role, we get into the interview process, our LinkedIn and resume are irrelevant. So I feel like I sometimes see like people get into the job interviews and then they're like, "Well, I'm still working on my resume." Why? Um, Focus in on that interview that you have in front of you, not your resume or LinkedIn profile. And referrals in so many senses trump everything else because it's like you're a known entity and you're a known entity from somebody currently working at the company who's referring you. So we always take that referral path, always. Okay. Yeah. Great advice and thanks for sharing. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Daphne. Thanks for being here. NVIDIA is worth a couple trillion now, whereas the original FAANG aren't worth that much. Yeah. And I would say, like, look, NVIDIA spiked so quickly that, yeah, I mean, the answer is like any good big tech company, you wanna go work for them for the brand recognition, for the money you're gonna make, and obviously for the cool work and learning opportunities, and then, of course, with any of these companies, don't stay if you're unhappy, right? I mean, I think that's a big one, like, people get into these companies and they're like, "But I'm at this great company," but great company doesn't mean great experience for you individually, and what is that all about? It's all about your leader manager. Terrible leader manager, I don't care how good the company is, it could be the best company in the world, but you have a bad lead and bad manager, it's not gonna be a good experience for you. But yeah, great point. Um, I think we should probably just stop using the acronyms, right, and just call it big tech, and then we can include any of the top 100 tech companies in there. Thank you, I will. By the way, just finished my master's in the US, but I still have speaking anxiety. I've opened up an account on your AI platform, and we'll start using it. Okay, awesome. Um, I know from doing these years of coaching that it's not just about your ability to articulate in your non-first language, but it's also the processing, right? So I speak a little bit of Spanish, and I really wanna set that with it's very little. But I know that I'm going even slower as I'm trying to process using Spanish as my language, so it gets a little tricky, so it's just repeat, 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 force yourself every single day, and then that becomes more about, like, okay, when you interact with maybe family members, try and use the other language, right? Or friends or anybody, try and force it because the more you force it, the quicker you'll get better, and then that will start to reduce the anxiety. Okay, awesome. Thanks for that. Okay. Is it negative to use one main example to answer multiple behavioral questions with 4 different interviewers? I like variety. I just remember one of the biggest mistakes when answering behavioral interview questions is people miss out on the pivot point, meaning where do we start answering the question? So you might have this major project or initiative, and one question is about a conflict. So that comes at a different point in the large project where one's about a strategy or process, or one's about X or Y or Z. So if it's a very robust program, project, or initiative, we can absolutely use it multiple times. But I would also say challenge yourself to have a diverse group of answers, just because when the feedback is reviewed, they may say, well, this candidate just used the same answer every single time. So just something to consider. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Did you hire a tutor for the interview or general interview speaking practice? So I would say, like, those are definitely 2 different people, right? Like, you can hire a tutor who will help with your language skills, but language skills and interviewing, my best guess is they're not an expert at both. But I don't know, possibly. Yes. Keep practicing, it will get easier. It's really about consistency and the compound effect. The more we practice anything, the better we get. So, again, everybody absolutely loves my basketball analogies, of course, but, when I was younger, I hurt my back, and I had to stop playing basketball for about 10 years. I did some things, like, I did a lot of yoga to stretch it out, make it feel better, and now I can play again, and so I started playing again about a year ago, and so what happened when I went out there a year ago? It was not good. It was a mess. Like, I couldn't shoot, I couldn't do anything, and now the last time I played, I was traveling last week, but the time I played before that, hitting a lot of shots, like, just making better passes, doing all those things. Why? Because I've been back playing for a year. So, it's just when we do it, the more we do it, the better we get at it, and I love the basketball analogy, but just keep practicing. Reached out to a hiring manager in big tech. They said to me, missing a couple of years of experience, and I should stay in my current role. Okay. I mean, at least they got back to you, right? That's good feedback, but don't let that reach out stop you from reaching out to other hiring managers that may have a role that's a better fit or more aligned with your years of experience. So you got that warm and fuzzy of hearing back. Keep reaching out, keep getting after it. I'd say I have a pretty good manager and team. However, the job and industry I don't particularly like or engage with. Is this grounds for leaving? If you are not, I don't want to say fully 100% happy in your job, because there's aspects of every person's job that, like, we don't 100% love, right? But it is tough when we have a good manager and a good team. But if the job and industry overall, like, that's 50% of it. So if the job and industry aren't great, then yeah, you should probably start looking. Of course, hold on to that job until you find another job because you have a good manager and team. But yeah, if I don't like my job or industry, I'm going to try to make a move. Hey, Jeff, I'm having an interview coming up for a global process ops in banking. Though I have experience on process re engineering, but treasury is also a part which I'm not sure. How in depth RRK question should I expect? Um, I may wanna know a little bit more information, but if the treasury part is like a minimum qualification, then that could be a challenge. If it's a preferred qualification, maybe it's something you can learn. My biggest piece of advice, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever your preferred AI tool is, throw the job description throw the job description in there and say, "Hey, please create 10 practice hypothetical and 10 practice behavioral job interview questions based on the job description." Those will be role-related questions, and you can kinda see how much that system is pulling questions maybe around treasury based on the job description, so do that exercise. Of course, you can try out my AI tool will do the same exercise of creating questions based on the job description, but, um, that's one tip or trick to see if, like, "Hey, can you actually answer those types of questions or not?" I hope that helps. I have years of experience. Okay, so you have years of experience as a data center technician 1, but you're not good at interviews. What would be the pros and cons of joining a third-party contracting company to work with Google so they get to know me more? For me, it's pretty much all pros. Um, e the opportunity to get into one of these big tech companies when you work as a third party or a vendor for them, look, people get to know you, like you, think you're great, and then when jobs come up, you're the first person they think about. And it's not just that, it's an opportunity to, it's an opportunity to really dive in and kind of build those relationships, talk with them, say, "Hey, like, I'm really interested in maybe turning this into a role at Google." Of course, you wanna do that, practicing good confidentiality, but no, I like that move. I think anytime we're able to show our skills, it's gonna be much more valuable than just trying to do it in a very short interview. I did my HM round for an analytical consultant in LCS on Monday, GCA RRK. I'm going to the final 2 rounds, which will focus in on RRK leadership and GCA googliness this week. Is it normal for it to be rushed? So, again, I always wanna bring in the context. Um, this to me is not rushed. To me, this is regular or even slow. I think we've gotten maybe, and again, this is just my more generic comment, gotten a little too used to interviewing during COVID and post-COVID, meaning pre-2020 or yeah, maybe even into 2020, but in 2019, you were gonna have to sit in all 4 of those interviews in 1 day, be on site, and have to get it all done in 1 day. So to me, it doesn't feel rushed. This is a good sign. They like you, they wanna move forward with you. Just make sure you're dedicating as much time as you can to prepping and practicing to get ready, but, um, if it ever feels rushed, we actually wanna focus in on the positive to say like, "Hey, they like us, and that's why they're moving quickly." For English, I also did 3 mock interviews with interview coaches, and I think that was extremely important. Look, working with one-on-one coaches, whether it's me or somebody else, it's really important that you're just practicing your interview school skills, whether it's with an AI tool. I mean, obviously, practicing with humans is great. It doesn't have to be a professional, right? It could be a friend, a family, a current or former colleague. It can be any of those things. The one thing I will say is if you wanna test if an interview coach is really good and you're maybe a lot of interview coaches will do an intro call. I don't do that, but some coaches do. Ask them what their system is. What is their system and coaching process? If they do not have a system and coaching process, do not work with them. And I'm gonna tell you, 99% of interview coaches do not have a system or process. You wanna make sure that they are following something rigid every single time. Why? Because that will fall within the same line, the same road, and will set you up for success. It's just something that I always recommend. Worried about RRK as I do not have ads experience. I come from another industry as a data analyst And the recruiter mentioned that the profile of candidates they usually hire are consultants. Okay. So again, if it's um, if it's ads, Google Ads, learn as much as you can about Google Ads. Prioritize your interview skills, but learning the specific skills are important. If we're going to answer a hypothetical question, we're going to say, I would support them and we'd walk through it and it would be great. That's not going to be as good as I would focus in on a performance max campaign for this flip flop, for this flip flop retail company, and I would do X, Y, and Z. Like your ability to speak to specifics will be extremely helpful, especially on the hypothetical side. Oh, Jim. Hey, Jeff, can we add our own questions to the AI tool? It's on the roadmap. Yeah, it's something that, multiple users have asked for. So again, like the coolest thing is I'm not building anything that the users aren't asking for. It's all based on feedback. So adding the own questions, yes. From a technical perspective, it has some complexities. So it's something that we're working on. It's on our roadmap. It'll probably come out. I would say if I'm being 100% transparent, it's probably 4 to 6 weeks out. Hey, Jeff, I have an interview on Friday for a digital business apprenticeship for RRK and GCA. Any advice? Apprenticeship roles tend to lean behavioral. So whether that's even like a volunteer project or a school project, lean on examples of times where you've, you know, had to deal with conflicts, struggles, good collaboration, decision making, all that stuff. Now on the RRK GCA side, role specific, they're going to want to understand a little bit about digital business experience. And then on the GCA side, just always solve like you're in the role. So if they ask you some sort of random question, go more towards digital business as your focus area and don't waver from that. And of course, STAR method for behavioral questions, CFAS for hypothetical questions. I hope that helps. I know that's pretty high level. Hi, Jeff. How can a UX researcher nearing 3 years of experience stand out in an interview? I'm good at my actual work, but somehow not able to highlight that effectively in an interview. Okay. I mean, it's a pretty broad question. So you're really good at your work. So if you're really good at your work, really need to focus maybe on writing down really great examples of what you've done in your career. That's a good starting place. Now, anytime we talk about a UX researcher, you have to be ready for questions that are going to be, you know, what's the best approach to research? You're doing some research. How many iterations of that research are we going to do? These are questions that you know the answers to. So ultimately, it just comes back to practice. The more you practice, the more success you're gonna have. I know that seems like such a basic thing to say. It's just a I guess I just get lost a little bit in when we have these really serious moments in our career, why we're not practicing enough. So, that's my recommendation. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Um, that's interesting to hear you say that. I read on Reddit people saying there's a lot of cons to trying to get hired at Google to get hired as a Google data center technicians by starting as a DT1 at a third-party contractor. Can't speak to what they're saying at Reddit. I know that direct relationships with people are more meaningful than anything else. So anybody who's telling you, like, you work for one of these third parties, why couldn't you go up to Jane who's working on site and build that relationship with Jane? Then once Jane gets to see your great work, say, I just want to let you know confidentially, I love to work for Google. And if you ever see a role or you think you could help me with that, I would really appreciate it. And if there's any feedback you can give me on what to work on or improve, that would be helpful. But you have direct communication with these people as opposed to somebody looking in from the outside. Um, I'm not saying don't believe what you read on Reddit. Reddit's great. Like it's a great resource. I use it, but it's lacking one major component, which is when you are able to connect with people in person, when you're able to speak with them, it's always gonna have an advantage. Well, good luck. Thanks for sharing that, Jim. If you made it to the decision phase and it's been more than a month since you received an update, but your status is under consideration, should I follow up? 100%. Yeah. That's crazy to not hear from any company for a month. So just make sure that you do follow up, and I would follow up immediately, Carlos. Let us know how it goes. In the CFAS method for hypothetical questions, should I mix multiple concepts from framework and share solutions? If yes, then how many solutions to put forward? Should I mix multiple concepts from the framework? Yes. Okay. So let's say you're talking about goals and objectives, and historical data. Could you combine those 2? Absolutely. Um, we don't know how many solutions they're gonna allow us to go through. What I would say is the biggest challenge I see with people using CFAS is, well, there's a lot of challenges, but they get to the solution and they solve for everything. Then what's the point of the framework? The framework is to show an outline. The solution is to dive into 1 or 2 areas more in depth. When you get to that end chunk, let's say you focused in on goals and objectives and historical data, you get to the end and you say, I think it probably makes sense to move on to stakeholders and building that shared vision with stakeholders. But I'm also happy to dive deeper into what I mentioned about data in regards to X or goals and objectives in regards to Y. Where should we go next? You want to break it up a little bit. Okay. Um, Interviewers just can't pay attention for that long. So we want to break up our solution into multiple solutions. How many solutions they're going to allow us to do is totally interviewer dependent. Uh, okay, Jen, have you completed your 2 shorts yet? If not, how about this week? Okay. By next live, I'll do it. Okay, thanks for the push. You are welcome. Thanks for being here. Project summaries then. Maria, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm happy to answer a question if you have one. You are welcome. Um, how many actions should we use for the STAR method? It depends. We prioritize our most meaningful actions. Here's the craziest thing about behavioral answers, and it took me I just needed to look at so much data, and I hope that this is the value. Just the sheer volume of interviews I've done in my entire career, but especially the ones I've done over the last 5 plus years. Almost all behavioral answers go through the same action types. We start in the beginning. So that's data, research, chatting. We're looking at the information, we're having some conversations. Then we get into some form of testing and execution phase. Testing can be literally going in and doing software testing on a product to testing it by we're testing meeting with that specific stakeholder who we had a conflict with and like working through it. But the next phase is testing and execution. And then the last phase, launching, presenting, documenting. That's kind of the action. So here's what happens. Most people front load the data research and chatting. I would say, and then they really miss out on like the testing and execution, launching, presenting, and documenting. It depends on the question. If the question is really front loaded and wants those front end actions, we'll spend more time there. If it wants to know more holistically, we'll spend all of our time going through everything. And then if it's more backloaded, we'll end and spend more time backloading it. Um, so that's not a really clear cut answer, but just make sure that your actions are the most robust part of your answer. Okay. So actually, let's talk about this, Maria. It's a great question. Is there an alternative to the STAR method? Let's let's talk about what this method means. And so, a good friend of mine, Madeline Mann, um, you may know about her. She's a total baller, huge following, like 350,000 subscribers. She's great. If you've never checked out her stuff, Madeline Mann, she's awesome. Um, she did a LinkedIn post and said, like, maybe we should use the CAR method or the PAR method. Like, she doesn't really like the STAR method. They're all the same thing. Okay. The only thing we need to do is set the context, talk about the actions we took, and then what are the results. So if people don't like STAR, use CAR, which is context, actions, results, or PAR, problem, actions, results. But we really need to get to setting the context, telling the audience what we did and how we did it, and then what were the results. And of course, you can talk about learnings, use follow-up questions as well. But people don't like the STAR method because they don't like bringing in the situation and task, but it's all the same. It's just context. That's all it is. And that's why I just go with the STAR method. But yeah, I'm more of a context, actions, results kind of person. Thank you, good sir, for taking the time. Thanks for being here, William. I appreciate everybody showing up. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for being here. Have a good day. Thanks for the valuable answers. Any tips on preparing the story bank for behavioral questions? Yes. You start with your best examples. If we're to just take a quick look at our entire career, I'm gonna say, here are the 3, 4, or 5 things I'm the most proud of. That's where we build the bank. We build the bank with our best projects, programs, or initiatives. That's where we start. Then we start to get a little bit more nuanced. We think about maybe a change we would make, like a failure, a bad decision. We start to think about that. We start to maybe think about a conflict question, how we've handled conflict internally or externally. That's another step we can take. We think about times where we did really great collaboration, times where we enhanced or helped with a process or strategy. So there's so many different places you can go, but the foundation, if you want to get started, write your best examples down first and then expand out from there. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we've come to the end of questions. If any more questions come up, I am happy to answer them. Let's go into our wrap up phase. Again, if you're just showing up or you haven't been here the whole time, if you use the coupon code Job Market, 20% off my AI tool and or the interview mastery course. That will be available until 12 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. Still doing one-on-one interview, negotiation, and strategy sessions. Strategy is focused in on resume and LinkedIn, but all those one-on-one sessions are still pretty popular. Uh, the AI tool is getting great feedback. We are crushing it in terms of adding new features, and we will continue to do that. If you've never checked it out, you can try 3 questions for free. You just won't be able to add your own job description, which I think is a game changer. Um, Interview mastery course, still getting great feedback on that as well. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday, and I do new original content every single Monday. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I'll be back next week. Thanks. Oh, sorry. Oh, you just snuck that in there. So I'll answer this last one. Does star car par work best in specific situations? Will it work for hypothetical scenarios? Nope. It's just for give me an example of, tell me about a time when, what did you do when X happened? I will, for the hypothetical side, use CFAS. That's clarify, framework, assumption, solution. And you'll see I have a ton of content on that. I actually did a CFAS video a few weeks ago. So if you've never watch that video. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. Thank you as well. Okay. I'm bouncing. Thanks so much to everybody for being here. Great session today, and we'll chat next week. Thanks.